My name is John Crowley. I work for UNESCO's Social and Human Science sector, and I've been the main focal point for this conference within UNESCO. It's a great pleasure to be able to address you after such a rich and exciting opening ceremony, which showcased all the organizing institutions, the financial partners, and lots of other things as well. The purpose of this session is very important. It comes a bit early in the morning. We have fewer people than we did yesterday, but they will come in gradually, and they will miss things they will regret missing. Because, as was said by a number of speakers yesterday, and this is not just rhetoric, it's a really important point, this conference is more than just an event. It's part of a process to establish an agenda for the humanities and to establish the mechanisms, in particular the mechanisms of cooperation and collaboration, by which we can move forward on that agenda. And in order to do that, you can't just do one event. You need a process involving a number of events, as well as processes that are not events, in order to bring together a wide and diverse community of stakeholders, including people who can't be here in Liège for whatever reason, because they're on holiday, because travel funds were inadequate, or because they had other professional commitments, but who have contributed in a significant way to the project as a whole. What we will be doing here in this session is looking at the whole range of preparatory events that have been organized in various parts of the world to discuss in thematic or regional focus what we should be doing with the humanities and what kinds of ideas we should be bringing here to Liège to shape outcomes that represent a very broad consultation of humanities stakeholders in all disciplines and in all regions. And in parallel with that, as you probably know, but I take the opportunity to remind you, we have circulated for your comments an outcome document which is designed to reflect the key messages that represent the consensus of the participants, not just in this conference, but in the process as a whole. The second draft, the first draft was circulated in July. The second draft, taking account of feedback on the first draft, was circulated to you last week. And that outcome document remains open for comment during the conference. Feel free to comment on social media, by email, or we have a comments book for those who prefer pen and paper, and for those who perhaps wish to look at what other people have said before deciding what they want to say. The comments book is at the UNESCO stand in the other building, near the registration desk, Place du 20 Août. Feel free to pass by any time when you're attending a parallel session and just tell us what you think should be in the outcome document. Its value as a statement by the participants in this conference of what they think UNESCO, SIPSH, and other humanities institutions should be doing in the future comes from the fact that it is inclusive, that it's had the opportunity to be improved and enhanced by the opinions of everyone involved in the humanities. In addition, we have held a whole series of preparatory events in every part of the world, and the conveners of those events, or people closely associated with them, are here to tell you about what happened, very briefly, but in order to show to you the way in which we have reached out to humanities communities in each region and cutting across disciplines in order to try to inform the discussions we will have here and make sure that we have a dynamic to move forward. We have a lot of presenters, so we will try to, I'll have to be very strict in terms of time. And I would like immediately to give the floor to the first of them in chronological order. The very first preparatory event for the World Humanities Conference was held in Beijing in December 2015, and it addressed issues of science and technology along the Silk Road. So I would like to invite Xiaochun Sun to present it to us. Please, you have the floor.
Good morning. Can I show the PPT? Help me. Yeah. The conference is International Conference on Science and Civilization on the Silk Road. It comes after a lot of discussion the next with ships, and of course, and also with was inspired by this World Conference on Humanities, and it was sponsored by DHST and also Professor Cao Gejing's Institute and the Chinese Academy of Science and the Society for the History of Science and Technology in China. Next, please. The question is what is the concept? How we understand this World Conference on Humanities. I think these humanities play a critical role in the contemporary society. They orient us towards a human-centered approach, help manage the human and cultural complexity of our societies, and provide long-term and in-depth reflections and interpretations of the social problems we face today, not only just the scientific or social sciences, it's humanities more deeper. And it develops a polycentric, break rigid boundaries between disciplines. So not only philosophy, linguistics, but also even between science and the humanities. And develop a polycentric approach to humanities, focusing on world's cultural, linguistic diversities, opens up new ways of thinking. I think this is also one of the SIP's mission, is to bring together all of the scholarly communities together in the world. I think humanities really matter in our age. So next, please. And the Silk Road, why we come to this idea of a Silk Road conference? It is a legacy. It is also a symbol of communications between civilizations. And I think Silk Road studies may be, provide a kind of a question or paradigm for studying a global history. I think the relations between civilizations, between East and West, were much closer than we had imagined. When we have a more closer relationships today, we can look back those materials, those historical facts in a deeper way. Then we find the closer relationships in the history. So it's in this way of looking, this Silk Road, this circulation of knowledge is a nice way to doing a kind of a global history, please. Next. So I just use modern science, for example. The emergence of modern science, of course, is a miracle, but this is not a historical serendipity. It's a result of the fusion of civilizations, Mediterranean, Western, India, all together. So when we look at our modernity, our modern science or scientific culture in this way, we should really think about the historical process of these communications and fusion between civilizations. That's one of the examples. Now I come to the next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So for this conference, we have two goals. One, of course, is bring science and humanity together. Formerly, humanities, so somehow science is more or less separated, but this time we bring people from different spheres. Particularly, and I think the history of science and technology could provide a kind of a very nice link between humanities and the sciences. And of course, the second goal is bring people together in order to foster mutual understanding of the diverse and often interrelated cultures. And this time in Beijing, we bring together, for example, people from Middle East, from many some countries which have never really had much contact. So and now, next, please. The themes of the conference will have these 5 ones. One is the astronomical Silk Road. China was, ancient time, astronomy was well developed. We had a large observatory in the medieval ages, for example, in Samarkand, in Baghdad. They also have these great observatories. I think it is very interesting to study the connections, the transmission of astronomical knowledge between West and East from this point of view. And the literature, these are the literature, folklore. From these themes, you can see scientific and humanistic studies were brought together in our conference. I will just show you. Next, please. This, for example, for astronomical Silk Road, this is the speeches, lectures which was given at the conference. I'm not going to go into the details. And the second, please. Next, please. And next. I just show you, yeah. If you're interested, you can have my PPT. And next, please. Next, please. Next. And these are the participants. These participants are both from DHST, the History of Science and Technology, and also from SIPS. This is a conference site and what happened in December in Beijing. and just to give you an idea. And we have about 60 participants for the conference. Next, please. And of course, after this impact, we have some follow-up conferences, meetings. This is when, for example, happened, we held in May this year in Beijing. More than 80 actually, participants from China participated in this conference on this Silk Road. And next, please. And another impact of this kind of dialogue, we are taking an initiative of creating an international society for science and civilization on the Silk Road. And this, next please. This initiative has been supported by CIPS, as the General Secretary Luis is here, and also by DHST. Next please. And for example, in Rio, just 1 week ago, we produced a documentary on the Yi people in southwest China with about a 10 months calendar. It's a kind of on the Southern Silk Road, and it's about how Yi people using their festivals reflected their 10 months solar calendar. It's quite unique. And we are going to, I think a big impact of this conference, we are going to create this society. I hope you can maybe have this address, and if you are interested, you may contact me later. That's the report of the Beijing conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being admirably concise on a subject that excites enormous interest across many of our communities and disciplines, precisely because it connects together so many things: the encounters of peoples, the movement of ideas and technologies, and the shaping of societies through exchange. The second conference in chronological order, again, I'm not sure if it's chronological order all the way through, but we'll see, was organized in Brazil in October 2016 on the theme Territorialities and Humanities, and I'd like to invite Sandra Almeida to give us the key points.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Our conference, next please. It was called International South American Conference, and as John pointed out, the theme we chose was Territorialities and Humanities because of the location of our institution in Brazil and because of the disaster that happened with a mining company very recently. So it took place in October 2016, as I said, in Belo Horizonte, in the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil. And this is the site, is still available in case you want to have a look at it. Next, please. So we divided the conference into, we divided the conference into 10 themes. The first one was borders and migration, identities and language, gender and cultural diversity, land and countryside relations, social control and habitability, ecology and environment, law and education, urban space and violence, materialities and representation, social development and innovation. These were themes that were being discussed for this conference, but also others that are important for our context. So we have the structure of the event. We had 10 panels on each one of the themes by invited speakers. We made sure that we had not only academics, but also people from the government and also members of civil society. So we organized each panel with people from these three areas because you wanted to listen to what other people in other contexts had to say about each of the themes. We also had some parallel sessions, and for that we had call for papers. We had about 600 participants throughout the events. And we also had a call for posters by students, undergraduate students, graduate, master's, and PhD students. So they presented posters on each one of those themes, and we also had awards for each one of those themes. and we had about 150 participants. We had to select, there were so many applications that we had to select 150 to present the panel throughout the days of the conference. We had also, and this was one of the things that we really liked in the conference, is that we had participation from different actors from diverse fields, not only the humanities, but we had participants from the health sciences, medicine, and also engineering. So this was a very interesting venue for that purpose. We also had the support of FAPEMIG, which is the research funding agency in the state of Minas Gerais, and also from FIENG, which is the Federal of Industry from Minas Gerais as well, which was also important for us because we wanted to bridge the relations between the academy, the university, and also the companies, and in this case, the industry. These are just some of the outcomes of the conference. We are going to have a session throughout this event, or there's going to be a conference by the academic coordinator of the conference, Professor Luis Vilauta, who is going to give more details about the outcome and the discussions during that conference. But one of the central issues that were discussed there was the contribution of the humanities to several aspects. First of all, to provide a critical view of society, to foster intervention, policies, and politics in our contemporary world, to strengthen also democratic and emancipatory values in relations of equality, social justice, cooperation, solidarity, and articulation among people. So as I said, I mean, participating in this conference were not only people from the humanities, but from all fields. And this was one of the conclusions that the panels discussed. Also, there was a belief that no sustainable project of building more just and less unequal worlds will succeed without a decisive and incisive contribution from the humanities and their diverse traditions of thought and knowledge. So there is no way to think about development of the world if you don't take into consideration the humanities. And also the recognition that non-encyclopedic, non-academic knowledge is also important. So we have to listen to society, to the civil society, to the other aspects of the social structure. And also the belief that a movement that proposes to refound the humanities cannot fail to consider the great inequalities in terms of gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, etc., all over the world. And that there is also the need to ecologize the humanities, that is, spreading knowledge from an ecological view of reality, and this with considering the planet and replaces humanity as part of nature. So this was also a very important discussion that we have throughout the panel. So I think that was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If the speakers keep to time this well, I might have the strange paradox of having to invent stuff to fill time. But I don't think that will happen. But thank you for being extraordinarily concise so far. I had the great pleasure of being at the conference that Sandra has just summarized. One of the things that struck me very much is the way in which the distinction between the social sciences and the humanities didn't really exist for many participants. And in particular, it struck me how much philosophy and sociology in many Latin American traditions have very permeable borders in both directions. Many sociologists are philosophers, many philosophers sociologists. And this creates a dynamic crossing the barrier between the humanities and the social sciences that invites us to reflect. Some people might say that the division is in any case obsolete, but maybe it still has value. This is one of the things we really want to hear you about. Since the chronological order breaks down now in the program, I will use the opportunity to mention one preparatory event that can't be presented here because the people can't be here today. We organized in June 2017 at UNESCO in collaboration with a European COST network. COST is a European funding mechanism for research networks, a conference on new materialisms, which will be presented in a symposium on Thursday. So I invite you, if you want to know what went on there, I won't improvise a summary of it. You can go and listen to Iris van der Toyen and Nathalie Blanc and Felicity Coleman on Thursday. I can't remember exactly when in the program, but you'll find it easily enough. We had a South American conference. We, of course, had an African conference, which took place in Bamako. You want to do it later? We'll change the order. So, keep waiting for Bamako. As part of the program of preparatory events, we also had a number of things that weren't formal regional conferences, but were closely connected to the preparation process. And Luis Osterbeck was the host of a number of them in Massau, and he will tell us about them. Do you have a PowerPoint?
I have a PowerPoint. Good morning. Thank you, John.
You can drive it with this.
This is not a great idea.
Someone else
because
can
I normally destroy. No, just tell me where it's
you could just press this to go to
this one. Okay. Okay, I will do my best. If I ruin this, it's not my fault because I explained I'm not very good with technology, right? I explained this yesterday at night. Very briefly, I will present first this, as John said, and then also the International Year of Global Understanding. And I'll try to do it very fast. First, FLE, which is today an NGO, research international NGO, but it started actually a few years ago. It's now led by Renaldas Gudauskas. It started as a European partnership, a partnership of research centers, universities from 8 countries in Europe, but also engaging the collaboration of local authorities and some companies, because the topic is humanities and cultural integrated landscape management. The question, the overall question was, can the humanities provide a contribution for daily cultural management of the territories? And if yes, how? The consortium that was joined by UNESCO Management of Social Transformations Program from 2016 onwards, and John was there, but it spread, getting collaborations of many other institutions, certainly CIPS from the very beginning, but also collaboration from ISSC at some stage, aimed to do basically this: establish the consortium, and in the end it became, as I explained, an international organization to promote advanced research seminars. Part of this to train in this multidisciplinary approach a series of advanced research students, master and PhD students. So every year for the last 4 years, we've been getting about 60 to 100 people for 2 weeks discussing in-depth specific topics, discussing also the methodologies that we can use, preparing publications, preparing a project which is probably the most ambitious one, which is to identify 100, to start with, 100 keywords of what people call sustainable development, but they mean many things with these words. So we are working on a lexicon, but it's a complex lexicon in which we will translate the words both into different disciplinary and theoretical approaches, but also into different languages, taking into account of the relevance of epistemologies, but also of cultural backgrounds in the construction and understanding of these words. And of course, applied research projects, engaging the field work, both in Europe, but beyond Europe, namely in Brazil, and to create new research degrees. 3 books have been prepared so far, 2 have been published. The first one, the topic was, how do we move from a problem-solving agenda, which is driving us to the disaster, into a dilemma-facing approach. And so there were contributions. These books are online. I will give you the website in a moment. The second one is sustainability and social cultural matrices. We looked into detail into the way societies operate beyond the formal institutional framework they create. How relations of neighbors and so on play a role in the construction of knowledge, in the dissemination of knowledge, in the agency of people. And I knew it, something would happen. What do I do now? Okay. And this is the next one. Well, this is already prepared, but we looked, this was this year, 2 months ago, we looked into education, training and communication, how these three dimensions that we have separated are actually bound together, and the dangers of breaking them, of separating them, and as separating many other things like culture and education, or economics and culture. In all these reflections, and I won't take more time with this, we took different approaches. So you have people from literature, people from economics, people from archaeology, from certainly anthropology, history, etc. Next year, 1423 March, we will gather together, hopefully again with UNESCO, and hopefully as a UNESCO school, to discuss this. How do you manage low population density areas? Now, everyone talks about management of big cities, and everyone is concerned about the problem of big cities. We want to look at two things. First, there is still a huge number of millions of people that are not living in big cities and they are being forgotten. And this is generating problems. When you talk about terrorism, for example, empty places are good places for terrorists to have their bases. So how do you manage that? How do you intervene in terms of the people and the knowledge and the cultural relations? But also we anticipate the future, and the future will be, we know it, as at least an archaeologist, a prehistorian knows it, sooner or later all that we have will collapse and people will disperse again. So how do we prepare that moment? And I invite you to join. Now, the second project I want to refer to was a much bigger initiative. It was started by the International Geographic Union. These slides are from Ben O'Verlen, professor at Jena University. You will come to the conference by tomorrow, I think, but he couldn't be with us this morning. And he will chair 2 sessions on this theme. The basic approach was how do we explain to people how the local and the global are actually interconnected at all times, at all levels. Now, often this approach sounds very strange for people because we might not think it, but in fact it's highly theoretical and highly abstract. So how do you take people to engage in this debate and to act consequently? The project was built with the collaboration of the 3 science councils, international councils. It's the first and unique time that CIPS, ISSE and ICSU got together to create a project, the International Year of Global Understanding, and this project was organized throughout for 1 year, but in fact 3 years, a preparatory year, last year 2016, and the continuation, around the concerns of people in their daily lives again. So eating, drinking, dwelling, relaxing, leisure, explaining to people when you drink water, very simple equation. You drink 5 glasses of water, 1 comes from Amazonia. It's an example in terms of the percentage of drinkable water in the world. So this sort of approach was done, and the success was very important, despite the fact that it was not in the end, as we thought, we expected in the beginning to be declared by the United Nations. It was not, but we had a good relation also with UNESCO, with many scholarly organizations, with many civil society organizations. over 50 regional action centers have been created all over the planet, and you can see them, and they remain, most of them remain. So we are now discussing how can we use this tremendously powerful base structure that has been created bottom up to continue. Ideas are coming. One possibility would be a decade of global understanding, not necessarily with this name. The important thing is to use what has been done, and I think it is something we will do also together with ICSU, ISSC, once you are together. And the most important observation of this project is to move from an environment-centered discourse towards an everyday practices and their culturally and physically differentiated contemporary worlds, which joins actually the observations of Sandra a few minutes ago. So again, on this, you are invited to join, and I'm happy to give you any feedback if you wish in the break. So this is the way we perceive the flow of things for IYGU. The projects, the construction of the regional action centers, the global understanding, the World Humanities Conference, which was considered from the perspective of IYGU a major moment, and now the follow-up, which is up to all of us. Thank you all. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Luis. So it's proposed to go back to chronological order inside discussion. So let's do that, which means that the next conference is the conference that took place in Lebanon in May. Seteni, are you happy to present it to us?
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. I'm afraid I'm low-tech, no PowerPoint. However, maybe that will encourage you to come to the session that the Arab Council for Social Sciences has organized. There will be PowerPoints there, and there will be some of the participants who participated in the consultation meeting that will take place on Wednesday from 6:30 to 8 in Lejeune. So for representations, please come to that event. So I'm pleased to report in this short time some of the highlights of the meeting that we organized in Lebanon. The organizing partners were the Regional Office of UNESCO in Beirut, the Social Sciences and Humanities Division. We were very happy to have with us Nada Nashef from Paris, the Assistant Secretary General of UNESCO for Social Sciences and Humanities, and we had also with us Adama Samaseko representing SIPSH, and the organizations involved were the Arab Council for Social Sciences, which I'm the director of, and the International Center for Human Sciences, which is based in Byblos in the north of Lebanon, and which hosted the meeting in a very beautiful setting. So this meeting was held May 18th to 20th and brought together about 50 Arab social scientists and humanists. We preferred to keep the lines blurry between the social sciences and the humanities. And rather differently, I now recognize from the other presentations, we did not organize the meeting around themes as much as around disciplines and interdisciplinary fields. And I'm thinking about it just now, listening to the other presentations. I think part of why we decided to do it that way is because when we're talking about the Arab region and 22 countries and the League of Arab States, we really know very little about the state of humanities and social sciences across this diverse landscape. And so really the meeting was a preparation for this World Humanities Conference, but it was also an attempt to do a sort of mapping, at least a preliminary mapping, to see the state of the humanities in the different countries of the region. So as I mentioned, around 50 people from 14 Arab countries. And so the sessions focused on certain disciplines, philosophy, social history, literature, and anthropology, as well as on interdisciplinary fields such as the arts, media studies, and cultural heritage. And in addition, there were 3 roundtables focusing on the state of humanities in Arab universities, the role of the university in development, in thinking about development and the practice of development, and a roundtable also on pedagogies and curriculum. So as I mentioned, you can see that it was an attempt to sort of see a kind of the state of the arts, if we want to call it that. Since I only have a few minutes to summarize some of the main points, there is a report that has come out in Arabic, and I understand from the organizers that there will be a report in English that will be published on the World Humanities Conference website by the end of this month. So obviously we'll go into more detail of the very rich discussions that took place. Just perhaps 6 points very quickly. One was that the humanities partake and are part of and do not stand above or distant from the general crisis of development, of higher education, and of social and political conflict in the various countries of the region. And so since the conference focused on sort of the longue durée, on kind of periods when there was a kind of florescence of humanities and other periods in which the humanities were marginalized, it's clear the relationship between sort of ongoing crisis at state and regional levels was clear. The question, of course, is how the humanities can address and better understand and suggest solutions to these various crises. An important point that was repeated with great angst among the participants was how the space for autonomous scholarship and thinking is shrinking in almost all the countries of the region. Educational policy, and this is not only because of authoritarianism or political repression, but also because educational policies since independence and especially since the 1990s, have focused on the professions and then on the natural sciences, but not even on the natural sciences, mostly on the professions. And in our session on Wednesday, I'll show some graphs showing the growth of higher education, of universities in the region, which ones have social science, which ones don't have social science, and you'll see that as the number of universities are increasing, the number of universities that have humanities are decreasing, in fact. So there's a real divergence between how higher education is being promoted and developed in the region. And yet, as I mentioned, the participants did emphasize, especially in various disciplines, that there were moments in the past where critical thinking flourished, and we have to recover this past. One important point was that there's a sort of intergenerational rupture, that the past of thought, of Arab thought, let's say, has not been documented, has not been synthesized, is not presented in any works, in any overview or synthetic sort of writing. And so we have to recover the past of Arab thought, and we have to work on genealogies of thought in particular disciplines or around particular themes. An important theme being that of heritage, turath, which in Arabic encompasses Islamic thinking as well as thinking about history and patrimony. Fourth point is that although the disciplines seem to be almost universally in crisis as part of a general crisis of higher education, we do see a great deal of creativity and critical thinking, particularly in the interdisciplinary fields. So looking at interdisciplinary fields which are newer in a way, and perhaps therefore offer a space for more innovation, such as in the arts, in media studies, in cultural studies, cultural heritage studies, and so on, we see the picture is brighter. And the relationship between academia and the public sphere, or between scholarship and activism, is also there's a much closer relationship than when we look at the disciplines. And so, although I would argue personally that we shouldn't ignore the disciplines or neglect the disciplines, but a lot of the hope for the future seems to be in these interdisciplinary fields, which bring together activists and scholars in struggles, some of which are everyday type of struggles over urban space, for example, or over understandings of heritage, and some of which are representations of the present and the past in cinema, in photography, in various forms of the arts. And lastly, I would just say that one interesting, certainly not unique, but interesting characteristic of the humanities and the social sciences in the Arab region is that they are transregional by virtue of the Arab region, of the language, the Arabic language being a vehicle for communication across a great many countries. And the Arabic language enables a circulation of ideas and texts. However, the circulation of people is getting more and more and more constrained due to political situation and due to visa regimes. And so, although we can talk about the national scene in any of these disciplines or fields within particular countries, there's also a almost organic, I hesitate a bit to use the word organic, but it's almost an organic circulation that also takes place. However, the infrastructures for these circulations are lacking and are getting fewer, actually, instead of getting more. So that, as I mentioned, there is a report in Arabic, and there will be one in English in a few weeks. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for reminding us very eloquently that this wasn't some kind of traveling circus where we just put the World Humanities Conference brand in various places. Every conference was different because the situations are genuinely different, and the whole reason for going to different places with different partners and usually somewhat different thematic orientations was to try to capture what is specific about particular national, regional, and disciplinary debates, and not just to fit everything in some kind of standardized format. And I think we've succeeded in doing that very well. It makes it difficult to draw conclusions, of course, but it really does build a dynamic of engagement from multiple stakeholders. Following the order of organization of events, the next one took place in Colombia at the initiative of Susana Vidal from UNESCO's Montevideo office. Since she can't be here with us, I'd just like to pay homage to her initiative in organizing an event as part of her Latin American networks of specialists in ethics of science and technology, and the key points from the event will be presented to us by Eduardo Rueda.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Hello to everybody. In the first place, thank you to the CIPS, UNESCO, and the City of Lieja for organizing this conference. We, the Latin American Council of Social Sciences, which you can see there in a very, you know, blurred way, like so, 50 years. With the support of the regional UNESCO program in philosophy and bioethics from the Montevideo, Uruguay office, and the Javeriana University in Bogota, Colombia, had the opportunity to organize a preparatory meeting, namely an international symposium on the topic Identity, Cultural Diversity, and Buen Vivir, or Sumac Causai, as it should be said in Quechua, in the ancient indigenous language called Quechua or Aymara. Okay, so I repeat, Identity, Cultural Diversity, and Sumac Causai, or Good Living in English, or Buen Vivir in Spanish. new ethical political frameworks. Somebody speak Spanish besides me here? Okay. So, Buen Vivir is the one. Okay, the symposium which was held in Universidad Javeriana, Bogotá on June 29 this year was organized to dialogue about the way in which the so-called Buen Vivir or Summa Causae, or good living as I said before, has influenced the redefinition of problems and the design of solutions in various aspects of social life in the context of Latin America. Particularly, the session wants to address, from the point of view of Summa Causae, 5 practical and political problems, namely the following. First, the growing regional inequity animated by neoliberal social and economics policies. Second, the challenge to redefine the content, scope, and limitations of development, as well as its political redesign to make it function in countries rich in cultural and biological diversity. Third, the scope and limitations of political and territorial autonomy of indigenous peoples. Fourth, the praxis of recognition and reconciliation in scenarios where armed conflicts, for example in my country, and or dictatorial regimes, for example Argentina or Chile, have caused numerous victims. And fifth, and the last, the biopolitical impact of Summa Causae, or Buen Vivir, or good living, in a context of post-conflict and deep inequity. So we had speakers from Argentina, from Ecuador, Bolivia, Brazil, and Colombia. More than 150 people attended the meeting, and right now the video which we recorded about the session is continually viewed from people throughout Latin America. Unfortunately, I cannot show the video right now. Anyway, it's in Spanish, but you can, of course, learn Spanish while you see the video. It will be my pleasure to share with you if you contact me to the link to see the conference. And this afternoon, we will have the reply of we will have the second round on this topic within this conference at 6:30 p.m. So kindly, I would like to invite you to attend the session this afternoon to discuss about what Buen Vivir or Summa Causae has to say about the contemporary challenges we are facing nowadays. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. And let me just reiterate the point that, as with many of the preparatory meetings, there is a symposium to follow up on the discussions, which is in the program. So if you find this particular angle interesting, please join the symposium. Just one comment, which I found very interesting the way you presented it. The meeting was about how the humanities can actually affect how societies organize themselves through policies. We don't often think of the humanities as doing that. We think of maybe the social sciences, particularly economics, contributing directly to policy design and implementation, but not the humanities. Thank you for the reminder, and I'm convinced that that distinction is completely artificial, that the humanities too have a role to play as scholarly disciplines, not sacrificing the virtue of scholarship in order to make themselves dirty and rich by contact with the policy process, but as part of their scholarly enterprise to contribute to the ways in which societies imagine themselves, including through the policy processes by which they shape institutions and socioeconomic outcomes. Now, the order here becomes a bit arbitrary because we had several events at the same time. So I will simply decide that in chronological order, the next took place in Kingston. And again, let me thank my own colleague, Giselle, for the initiative in organizing a Caribbean consultation meeting, which was organized in a very short time span, but very successfully, and about which she will tell us more.
Bonjour tout le monde, merci beaucoup John. C'est en effet un grand plaisir d'être ici parmi vous aujourd'hui. J'ai le privilège de vous présenter à travers une courte vidéo les points saillants de la réunion que nous avons organisée à Kingston, réunion que nous avons appelée Caribbean Humanities Conference. Et cette réunion a eu lieu les 29 et 30 juin dernier. Nous avons invité environ une quinzaine d'experts de différentes universités et académies des Caraïbes, autant francophones, anglophones et hispanophones. Et nous avons pensé que le public bénéficiaire de cette initiative devait être la jeunesse. Donc je vous invite à regarder cette vidéo. Comme je vous disais, ce sont les points saillants de cette réunion. Pendant cette semaine, il y aura aussi d'autres présentations qui seront faites par deux autres personnes qui ont participé de cette initiative, notamment la représentante des jeunes et le coordinateur académique. Est-ce qu'on peut débuter la vidéo, s'il vous plaît?
Welcome to this UNESCO Caribbean Humanities Symposium towards the World Humanities Conference, Challenges and Responsibilities for a Planet in Transition.
UNESCO's work with and for youth is committed to empowering young women and men and helping them to work together to drive social innovation and change, participate fully in the development of their societies, eradicate poverty and inequality, and foster a culture of peace. Youth are not just beneficiaries, but they are essential actors in finding solutions to the issues faced by young people in the world today. Their energy and leadership has been demonstrated across the world, and they must be fully engaged in social development for themselves and supported in this work by their societies.
We have to pay keen attention to the concerning trend that I know is coined as selfies when he's thinking about the pictures, but there's a trend of selfies over selflessness. We have more persons who seem to be caring less about each other and becoming far more insular in a very real sense.
One of the objectives of this symposium is to study how the humanities contribute or may contribute at national, regional, and international levels to measure, understand, and better manage the cultural transformations that are also expressed in economic, social, and environmental dimensions related to the progressive globalization of exchanges. Building a responsible world of solidarity is a long-term endeavor that has to draw on all the creative forces of humanity. Culture, education, philosophy, science, information technology, law, and international cooperation provide us with the means. Building the ramparts of human dignity in everyday life is not only a utopian quest. Humanism is a promise we must all keep.
Humanities-based disciplines are at a crossroads. We are prepared to redefine our relevance.
Some sort of balance should be struck so that all cultures can or could, in principle, receive fair representation. UNESCO's appeals to the cultures of the world to work together in harmony are all well and good. But the fact of the matter is that those cultures can also be in competition or even conflict with one another.
It is my contention that in such a changing world, there is a need for an extended knowledge combined with a form of civic engagement. I conceive of civic engagement as broadly understood to include various ways in which individuals participate in the life of a community in order to improve conditions for others or to help shape the community's future.
In the Caribbean, we have a history that we need to remember. How we faced the metropole domination, not only in political life, economic or social life, but also in the epistemic life.
I was going to actually ask if it is bad to have a singular identity. And I mean, that was answered to say not necessarily, but it is how it is publicized. And for me, as you can see, if it's going to be that you're going to say PMP or JLP, in that sense, I think having a singular identity is bad. If it is that we're saying that we're having one identity, that regardless of what political parties in power, we're working towards the sustainable development of Jamaica, then that's a good singular identity because everybody is included and everybody buys into it. If it's the Caribbean, we say, okay, even though I'm Jamaican, even though I'm Trinidadian, you know, I'm Bajan, at the end of the day, we're all coming together to make the Caribbean better.
If you don't have high self-esteem, or if someone is telling you that you have to stay in a particular situation for economic empowerment or things like that, then you're going to continue to fall in the cycle of that.
On an individual level, if you consider how we go about interacting with people, I think if you're not truly able to appreciate the differences between people and the motives that have contributed to who they are, then you won't necessarily appreciate them as persons.
We need to embark upon the kind of education that would properly enlighten people on the truth about identity and how it has been in the past manipulated.
How can we touch the youth in a sense where we educate them on the importance of the morality of being an individual, accepting the societal norms? How can we, as young persons, through the assistance with UNESCO, reach out to these individuals to say, hey, this is not right. It's easier for young persons to connect with other young persons where they would listen, as opposed to an older person talking to that young person, because they're just going to see that person trying to hinder their fun.
It's up to us to showcase ourselves in ways that society will see very clearly that humanistic disciplines are very important. And I'm sure that as soon as we are able to do that, funding will come.
Thank you very much, Giselle, for giving us a movie. And let me congratulate you publicly, we've discussed this privately, on so successfully engaging young people in the Caribbean Conference. It's really important that we bring down the average age of some of our events. Not because wisdom isn't important, and not because wisdom and age aren't correlated, but because there are other issues and we need to take them very seriously. The last in our series of preparatory events, actually concurrently with the Kingston event, was organized in Bamako, Mali, from the 28th of June to the 1st of July, and I'd like to invite the President of the World Humanities Conference, Adama Samasekou, to present to us the key conclusions in 10 minutes.
I have more time.
10.
On va jusqu'à 10h30, non?
Non, on va jusqu'à 10h10, parce que la cérémonie, on a la cérémonie.
10h10 on a modifié le programme. Dans le programme, c'est de 9h à 10h30. Bon, c'est ce qui est écrit dans le programme. Non, c'est pas grave, c'est pas grave. Je vais essayer de faire. Chers amis, bonjour. Je vais vous faire l'économie, évidemment, de mes salutations traditionnelles en langue mandinka pour gagner du temps. Effectivement, comme l'a dit John, c'est la dernière conférence, en fait, préparatoire. Mais c'est aussi la conférence préparatoire la plus spécifique de la série des conférences régionales préparatoires et qui a correspondu à ce que nous avons imaginé dès le départ. Cette conférence africaine des humanités s'est donc tenue du 28 juin au 1er juillet 2017 sur le thème langue, culture, histoire et territoire. Elle a été co-organisée par le gouvernement du Mali et l'UNESCO et elle a réuni d'éminents professeurs, chercheurs, spécialistes des lettres, des arts et des sciences humaines venus d'Afrique et des Africains de la diaspora, ainsi que des acteurs de la vie sociopolitique du Mali. Cette rencontre qui a enregistré la participation de près de 1170 personnes, dont 27 États africains, 38 personnes ressources, des keynotes et des panélistes. Ils se sont penchés sur les apports spécifiques du continent africain à la fondation, à la refondation des humanités. Je dois dire ici que la spécificité donc de cette conférence, c'est qu'elle a été entièrement soutenue, organisée, financièrement soutenue par le gouvernement de la République du Mali. Et je crois que c'est important de le dire. Et c'est peut-être pour cette raison que je voudrais aussi que les armoiries du Mali soient associées aux partenaires qui ont financé la conférence mondiale, puisque le Mali aussi a contribué à faire venir ici une partie de la délégation africaine. La séance inaugurale a été déclinée en 3 parties. La première, c'était la cérémonie d'ouverture, qui a été présidée par le Premier ministre du Mali, au nom du président de la République, et qui a enregistré les communications, outre du coordinateur, votre humble serviteur, du co-président du comité scientifique international, le professeur Jean Vinan, qui nous a fait l'honneur d'être à Bamako, ainsi qu'évidemment du représentant de l'UNESCO, M. John Crowley. La conférence inaugurale, dans un deuxième temps, a été présentée par le professeur Drissa Diakité sur les manuscrits anciens africains face aux défis de l'heure. Il s'agit à travers le choix de ce thème, à partir d'un cas particulier, afin d'amorcer la réflexion sur la problématique des humanités en Afrique. Pour le professeur Drissa Diakité, les manuscrits anciens sont aujourd'hui confrontés à plusieurs défis majeurs. La cohérence de la vision des acteurs sur les manuscrits et les biens culturels en général, les dommages importants subis sur le patrimoine culturel malien, le défi des ressources humaines de qualité et en nombre suffisant, le pillage et le trafic des manuscrits anciens, le défi de la valorisation des manuscrits anciens, et des opportunités s'offrent pour relever ces défis. Elles sont de 2 ordres, les opportunités stratégiques et celles programmatiques. Dans un troisième temps, l'état des lieux des humanités africaines a été dressé par 2 consultants, à savoir les docteurs Lazare Kizerbo et Martial Zebelinga. Pour le docteur Lazare Kizerbo, il a abordé la question des territoires des humanités en Afrique, une approche inclusive et prospective. Il ressort de cette étude que les territoires des humanités reposent sur des fondations anciennes qui pourraient amplement contribuer à l'essor contemporain d'un champ épistémologique. L'action de quelques pionniers et précurseurs de la recherche africaniste a permis d'atteindre des résultats intéressants par leur portée même. Il existe à cet égard un important corpus oral et écrit dont les institutions scientifiques et universitaires pourraient tirer une valeur ajoutée au profit de l'Afrique. Dans cette optique, la mise en valeur du potentiel africain exige que les communautés scientifiques et les décideurs politiques conjuguent leurs efforts pour la revitalisation des humanités en Afrique. Le docteur Martial Zebelinga a abordé l'état des lieux des humanités en Afrique, humanité, langue et savoir endogène. La configuration actuelle des sciences humaines et sociales en Afrique n'offre pas un cadre approprié pour l'épanouissement des langues et des savoirs endogènes. Épistémicide et linguicide, cette configuration aurait un impact plutôt négatif sur le développement durable. Les langues et les cultures africaines y sont fragilisées, étouffant ainsi d'énormes potentialités en gestation. La modernisation endogène des sociétés africaines ne peut en effet être envisagée qu'avec les langues du terroir. Il importe en l'occurrence d'intégrer les savoirs traditionnels et les langues africaines dans la recherche académique, les cursus scolaires et universitaires, les usages publics. Il y a eu des keynotes sur plusieurs thématiques. Il y a eu plusieurs panels et tables rondes, dont langue, culture, éducation, langue africaine et à l'ère du numérique, histoire et territoire, humanité africaine, université africaine et production des savoirs, et puis une table ronde spéciale sur la thématique à l'écoute des pionniers des humanités africaines. Plusieurs recommandations ont été faites à l'occasion, à l'issue de ces tables rondes et de ces panels, et en particulier une prise en compte valorisante des savoirs endogènes par leur intégration dans les cursus scolaires et universitaires de nos États. Les porteurs de ces savoirs endogènes doivent aussi être intégrés dans les cercles académiques de nos structures d'enseignement et de recherche. Plus spécifiquement, une plus grande utilisation pédagogique des publications sur l'histoire générale de l'Afrique, de l'UNESCO, une mise en œuvre efficiente du programme pour la gestion des transformations sociales MOST de l'UNESCO et un engagement plus ferme pour la généralisation de la recherche et de l'enseignement des humanités africaines à l'échelle internationale. L'ensemble de ces recommandations et le rapport se trouvent sur le site de la conférence Humanités avec S, 2017.ml. Suite à tout cela, la conférence africaine de Bamako a estimé que cette rencontre était l'occasion pour les Africains de dire leurs paroles. C'est pour cette raison qu'elle a conclu l'ensemble de la conférence sur une sorte de déclaration appelée « Message de Bamako », dont je vais vous livrer quelques extraits très rapidement. Message de Bamako. Réunis du 28 juin au 1er juillet 2017, à l'occasion de la conférence africaine des humanités sur le thème « Langue, culture, histoire et territoire », une centaine de chercheurs, femmes et hommes de culture ont dressé en présence de représentants des États africains un état des lieux des humanités africaines et formulé un certain nombre de pistes stratégiques qui leur paraissent essentielles pour répondre aux enjeux de la Conférence mondiale des humanités consacrée au thème « Défis et responsabilités pour une planète en transition ». Cette rencontre exceptionnelle était aussi l'occasion de formuler pour les humanités du monde un besoin d'Afrique qui devrait être réaffirmé à Liège. Berceau de l'humanité, l'Afrique est un lieu matinal où, par les inscriptions, l'art rupestre, l'inhumation des morts, l'écriture, les religions, la conservation des artefacts, etc., l'intention de dire, de patrimonialiser, de célébrer le vivant a été extrêmement intense. Ce qu'il reste de la civilisation égypto-nubienne illustre bien cette production autochtone africaine de discours, de représentation, de valeurs attachées à l'humain, insérées dans son écologie avant toute empreinte extérieure. La conférence africaine des humanités s'est tenue dans un pays où l'humanité du monde s'exprime tant dans l'enracinement, les valeurs et traditions partagées, que dans l'idée proverbiale selon laquelle le monde est aussi dialogue, échange de paroles. Elle s'inscrit dans une longue tradition de conversation interne à l'Afrique, ancienne d'abord, puis tradition de contact avec les cultures environnantes, Asie, Islam, Europe, et plus tard, reconnexion multiforme avec les diasporas africaines dispersées de par le monde. C'est au préjudice de l'histoire que les traditions écrites africaines seraient limitées à des apports extérieurs islamiques ou chrétiens après l'Antiquité égyptienne. En effet, différentes graphies attestent du rapport de tous les temps des civilisations africaines avec la mémoire, la connaissance, la sagesse, la justice, la spiritualité. Les écritures libidiques et tifinaghes des Berbères et Touaregs, les Nsibidi du Nigeria, les Adinkra idéogrammes Akan ou le Gez d'Éthiopie, ainsi que l'écriture Nko de l'espace mandin appartiennent, parmi d'autres, à cette grande archive africaine et mondiale que les manuscrits de Tombouctou et du Sahel devraient contribuer désormais à faire redécouvrir. Dans un monde marqué par l'intensification des migrations forcées ou volontaires, l'Afrique apporte le meilleur de ses traditions de socialisation, de mobilité, de brassage, propice à l'émergence de cultures aussi enracinées que cosmopolites, multilingues et multiconfessionnelles. À ce titre, les humanités sont capables de déconstruire l'essentialisation des origines ou d'une expérience humaine présentée comme unique, universelle, et d'insuffler en Europe, en Amérique, en Asie, en Afrique, le souffle apaisant d'une provincialisation de l'Europe, d'une nouvelle xénologie politique. Loin d'un commentaire journalistique de l'actualité, les humanités disposent de ressources pour décrypter les violences invisibles et structurelles des inégalités d'un monde caractérisé par la convergence fulgurante des savoirs, des capitaux, des matières premières, des revenus, des reconnaissances vers les mêmes espaces sanctuarisés d'accumulation, créant les conditions de déchaînement, d'explosion que des facteurs d'apparence religieuse ou identitaire décupleront. Dans le sillage de Cheikh Anta Diop, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Joseph Kizerbo, Amadou Hampâté-Bâ, Ayo Bamboche et bien d'autres, la conférence africaine considère que l'utilisation des langues africaines dans la recherche, l'enseignement, la création littéraire ou artistique et le cyberespace constituent la prochaine frontière des humanités africaines et mondiales. Le respect des droits culturels et linguistiques sera à cet égard une condition d'émergence de nouveaux espaces de production et de transmission du savoir par les humanités africaines. Ceci ne pourra se faire sans un travail profond de refondation des disciplines, des catégories, des méthodologies, des paradigmes usités. En effet, les transformations espérées des humanités risquent fort de demeurer des vœux pieux, sans des renversements substantiels dans l'ordre épistémologique, décolonisation des humanités, savoir endogène. À tort ou à raison, la dévaluation des humanités tient aussi à l'impression qu'elle ne ferait qu'accompagner, voire prolonger les commandements du néolibéralisme qui, sous prétexte d'efficacité marchande, consacre un monde culturellement réduit, inégal, prédateur de l'environnement et de la convivialité du vivant. Un enjeu important pour l'Afrique et le monde sera la redécouverte des vastes archives endogènes. Il s'agit notamment des archives non europhones et non islamiques depuis les premiers pas de l'humain jusqu'à nos jours, incluant les artefacts des grandes civilisations égypto-nubiennes, les milliers de manuscrits maliens, sahéliens et non sahéliens, sauvés par certains de la barbarie, du pillage archéologique et de la marchandisation par la mobilisation des citoyens africains captifs dans les collections privées ou publiques occidentales, vendus dans les salles de marché des grandes capitales du monde, sont appelés à être les objets culturels africains captifs dans les collections privées ou publiques occidentales, vendus dans les salles de marché des grandes capitales du monde, sont appelés à être des sujets de discussion relatifs au patrimoine africain, aux épistémicides et aux demandes de réparation. Il est urgent que les humanités inscrivent ces silences et angles morts dans les agendas internationaux sous peine de contribuer encore, à l'instar des modèles cognitifs, culturels et économiques, à une colonialité durable du monde. Il revient aux institutions africaines de recherche de conjuguer leurs efforts pour relever les défis d'une rupture avec les épistémologies occidentalo-centrées, logiciels mortifères ayant rendu possible une longue prédation de la nature et des humains. La lutte contre les risques d'épistémicide et de linguicide est également une nécessité pour éviter l'accélération d'une forme de paupérisation anthropologique pour les générations à venir. Le redéploiement des discours résultats acquis de la recherche des humanités vers les besoins des politiques publiques, vers les attentes des sociétés civiles face aux angoissantes mutations du monde devra faire l'objet d'une attention plus sérieuse, de stratégies originales et actualisées. C'est pour cette raison qu'à l'occasion de cette conférence africaine préparatoire de la Conférence mondiale des humanités, les humanistes africains prennent l'initiative de se constituer en réseau. Ce réseau aura pour mission de réunifier autant que possible les différentes communautés africaines et diasporales des humanités à travers l'organisation biennale d'un forum des humanités africaines autour de la charte des humanités et sciences sociales adoptée par l'Afrique du Sud, en vue de travailler à un monde moins anthropocentrique, moins utilitariste, moins individualiste et moins mercantiliste. Les concepts africains d'Ubuntu ou de Maya, renvoyant à un être avec les autres, solidaires d'une cosmogonie attentive à l'ensemble du vivant, sont appelés à féconder le corps des humanités, sommé lui aussi de se transformer. Voilà, chers amis, le message de l'Afrique porté ici à Liège aux oreilles du monde à l'occasion de ce dialogue mondial des humanités. Merci de votre attention.
Merci beaucoup, Adama. Merci pour ce message éloquent qui va résonner toute la semaine, bien sûr. Nous aurons...
Je l'avais éteint.
Nous aurons l'occasion de revenir sur tous ces points dans les différents symposiums et dans certaines des sessions plénières. Dans le temps qui nous reste dans cette session, j'ai le grand plaisir d'ouvrir la scène à quelque chose d'un peu particulier, mais de très important. Let me switch back to English. Sorry, I see you putting your headphones on, so let me say it in English. I mentioned earlier the importance of partnerships, and in particular of new partnerships, in establishing the basis for the humanities to move forward. And we have now the opportunity to witness the signing of one of those partnerships. The corporation Tencent and CIPSH have agreed on a framework agreement to cooperate in order to support and promote the humanities, and we will have the great pleasure now of witnessing the signature of that framework agreement. So could I call up Mr. Cheng, Vice President of Tencent, and Mr. Zhao Gujin, President of CIPSH, and Luis, in your Secretary General capacity, do we have the documents to be signed? And of course, I'll invite you to say a couple of very brief words about the nature of this partnership, so that the audience can understand why it's important and why we should collectively witness the signature.
Chao and Edward will
Please. Would you like perhaps, while Chao puts the papers, to say one word about why this partnership is important?
I think as an internet-based technology and a culture company, we're looking forward to work closely with CIPSH to leverage the power of technology to promote humanities. We are looking forward to this great cooperation and partnership. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Chao, do you have one word to say about the importance of this ceremony before we proceed to put pen to paper?
Oh yes, as I said yesterday, the humanities and science and technology join hands would really enhance the cooperation in wide spectrum and in general. And we do hope in the future our CIPSH and Tencent would join hands and to promote some very significant, important programs, especially on safeguarding of the intangible cultural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have been asked, and thank you for inviting me, to act as witness to this agreement. I'm doing that in a personal capacity, of course, but who knows? Maybe someday an actual UNESCO signature will be on a document that testifies to a three-way cooperation, which we've started discussing, and who knows, which we might move towards fairly rapidly. So, how do we stage this? Okay. This is, by definition, a photo opportunity. So please. So your applause is for the commitment of a major tech company to support the humanities, not in order to further corporate interests or profit, but in order to affirm the importance of the humanities and the capacity of technology to support exciting new ideas, exciting new cooperations, new ways of making use of information. This is obviously just one bilateral relationship, but it can perhaps be a model for what we can achieve as we seek ways of underwriting the capacity of the humanities to deliver. It has been said by many people in this opening session that the humanities are still too often marginalized, both yesterday and today. If they are not to be marginalized, they need friends in the right places. Thank you, Tencent, for being a friend to the humanities. Thank you, Mr. Cheng. Thank you very much. And I'm both astonished and delighted to announce that thanks to the iron discipline of all speakers, thanks to the very efficient organization of the ceremony, not only are we not late, we actually have 4 minutes extra for the coffee break. I won't propose to open some kind of general discussion, which will immediately make us late. I propose that we use the coffee break for you to discuss everything that you've heard this morning. I wish you a very pleasant one. And remember the next plenary session, where Robert Kahn will be talking My apologies, I wasn't informed. I didn't realize. So, the 4 minutes will be for the presentation, not the coffee break. My apologies, no one told me.
Apologize to delay your tea break. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. A major agenda of this conference is to discuss and formulate a new roadmap for human sciences in the 21st century. As an internet company from China, Tencent is honored to be part of the discussion today among humanists from around the world and picture together with you the future of human sciences. On August 1st, before I left for Liège for this conference, my colleagues in China launched an online initiative called Preserving the Vanishing Cultures, urging internet users to record cultures that are disappearing from their life. What prompted us to start this project is a piece of music we obtained from a village that in the clouds. The village, named Armai, is 3,000 meters above the sea level, almost totally cut off from the outside world. The singers are mostly in their 70s and 80s. Young people are leaving, and the music in this village is facing extinction. One question has been lingering. As an internet company, what can we do about it? In the past decades, we have witnessed drastic and disruptive changes to our society, brought about by advances in technology. These changes are accelerating. Everything we know is being replaced or displaced by new emergencies. This is especially true in China. As children, my generation got to welcome the introduction of television in China about a little bit more than 30 years ago. But today, we are all worried that our kids and even ourselves are too hooked to the mobile phones. Mobile phones are changing people's life in China. They are used for games, music, reading, shopping, ticketing, and even for house calls for your puppy's haircut. We are moving toward to a cashless society. In major cities, even street food vendors would accept mobile phone payment. All this made possible largely because of a Tencent application called WeChat. Simply put, WeChat is a super application that has the combined functions of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Amazon, to name just a few. It has 938 million monthly active registered users from around the world. We also have another social platform named QQ. QQ has also 861 million monthly active users. It is more popular among the younger generation who are always looking for something trendy and funky. With so many users connecting with each other and with the world around them, mobile internet has even changed what it means to be present. As I said yesterday, Tencent is the largest game company in the world. At this very moment, millions of game players are experiencing connected presence in our mobile game Honor of Kings, enjoying a sense of an online community. Though they are geographically distributed from China, South Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, and Turkey, and some other countries across the world. This is certainly something to be very proud of. In the past decade, especially the last 5 years, we have worked really hard to develop and assemble the building blocks of a system that we call pan-entertainment. This system brings together different media formats and content. games, animation, literature, film and television, even music and esports. New connections create new content. They cross-fertilize and co-evolve, generating a broad array of cultural products. The innovation generated through connecting different modules and the cultural impact of our pan-entertainment system has gone beyond our wildest dreams. Tencent's pan-entertainment system has become a prototype for the convergence of internet and culture in China. The system does not only bring different modules and formats together, it connects people together, building links between creators, between consumers and creators. We call this new emergence creator economy, hugely different from the economic model we are very familiar with. First, more people are participating in it. Our online literature platform now has more than 4 million registered writers providing content to 600 million readers. As I said yesterday, most of these content providers are not professional writers. However, they have created around 10 million literary works, and this number is growing at every minute as we are speaking. Our animation platform has 90 million users looking for content to stream, and the total screening has amounted to more than 10 billion. What is peculiar about these platforms is that there is not a clear boundary between creators and users. Most creators updated their products and interact with users on a daily basis, who subscribe to and comment on content. Some of these users would adapt this content or even start to write their own work and become creators, even gurus. As successful creators, they are called online in China. Second, the internet has reconfigured production. Creators are now directly facing their users. A flatter and a more efficient way of production is emerging. Big data is playing a more and more important role in the production. Third, users are linked with each other more closely than ever. They share, collaborate, and form into fan groups around the popular creators and their works. These works find it is very easy to have a ready audience and readership when converted into other formats, including films, online games, and animation. This has changed our means of production and communication. It has also generated new ways of thinking and storytelling. The changes technology is bringing to the culture sector are still panning out in front of us. One thing we are sure is that just like the Industrial Revolution brought us textile machines, assembly lines, as well as Hollywood and McDonald's, we believe the information revolution led by the internet will transform both of our economy and our culture. We are witnessing this historical transformation to take shape now in the field of arts and humanities. Connections are making online expression more open and diverse. Subculture content such as emoticons and games are traveling across cultural and national boundaries, consumed by most people with a mobile phone, blurring the line between the mainstream culture and the subcultures. In China, there has been a niche market for tourism-based fairy chivalry fantasy novels. This category has been a hit online. Many novels are adapted into films, television, dramas, and games. They're translated by websites, even in the United States, for subscribers to read for free. For example, on Tencent's comic and animation platform, the most popular work is an original anime work called The Fox Spirit Matchmaker. In Chinese fairy tales, fox spirits are fox-turned, young, beautiful, but evil girls. The creator of the Fox Spirit Matchmakers, Xiaoxi, adapted this image and made it into a pure, innocent, and daring girl. The audience loved this, and it is now has been exported to Japan. Every period of time in history has its signature culture form. in China, we have Tang Dynasty poems, Song Ci poems, Yuan Dynasty drama, and the novels of Ming and Qing dynasties. We believe that the cultural forms native to the internet, such as online literature, online comic and animation, online games, and even esports, will play a bigger and bigger role in the future. At the moment, the Tencent network, with creators at the center, is still gaining momentum and evolving. We are doing very well in linking creators and users, and between users themselves. We are doing less well in linking creators and professionals, linking creators and creative resources. Our support infrastructure for creative innovation is still nascent. To better support creators, we launched a new initiative 5 years ago called Next Idea. Started as an innovation competition, has morphed into a bridge linking the Tencent content platform and external creative resources, and an incubator of innovation towards which these resources gravitate. In 2016, Next Idea created some quiet bars working with the Palace Museum. We call it Forbidden City as well. The Palace Museum provides images of their collections to users to adapt and appropriate. In the user-generated products, emperors of the ancient China, the kings, do not only perform rap, they also become funny, popular emoticons. The 100-year-old Palace Museum finds its new way into the everyday life of Chinese people with a totally different face. Through this project, we have realized that the traditional culture, when presented in ways receptive to the younger generations, could also be cool, popular, and relevant in our daily life. This year, we will work together with the Great Wall in China and bring the ancient Great Wall closer to the young people. Our panel tomorrow afternoon will also provide you with more information about the Great Wall project. We are in a time of rapid technological advances and unexpected changes. We're in a time of abundance and agony. As Yuval Harari says, we are much more powerful than ever before, but we have little idea what to do with that power. This is alarming. Nobody knows what lies ahead in the future. However, I believe the power of collective intelligence, the power of links and connections, the power of culture. I believe the stories and the arts that have touched us and the values that have bounded us for thousands of years will still empower us to have control of our own common destiny. The great historian Arnold Toynbee once said, "Mankind is surely to destroy itself unless it succeeds in growing together into something like a single family." According to him, for this, we need to understand each other and understand each other's history, because man doesn't live just in the immediate presence. We live in a mental time stream, remembering the past and looking forward with hope or fear to an ongoing future. The internet has created more possibilities for cultures and people to understand each other, and more possibilities to us to shape and build a shared future. This is why I'm here today. I hope to work together with you, with CIPSH, to picture our shared future. Tencent has joined hands with UNESCO in the Open Digital Library on Traditional Games, which leverage ICTs to archive, protect, and develop traditional games, a form of intangible cultural heritage. We have made headway in this initiative, and we are experimenting to incorporate traditional games into today's online games. We believe we should not only preserve traditional culture, we need to find a new way to give them new life and new expressions in the new technological settings. Tencent will respect the power afforded by the technology, put it to good use, to enrich cultures and improve lives. And finally, go back to the village that I mentioned in the class at the beginning. The music is now already archived in Tencent's Discovery Music project. And in the future, we will also launch special albums on our music platforms for intangible culture and heritage. Thank you all for today.
Thank you very much. And so, having prematurely announced it, let me now really announce it. Thank you to all speakers for their excellent contributions. The next plenary session is in this room at 11 a.m., where Robert Kahn will be talking again about the internet. Please join us for that, and in the meantime, enjoy your coffee break. Thank you very much.